You're listening to the Cross-Check NHL Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clarke.
Welcome to the Cross-Check NHL Show. I am Andrew Berkshire from Game Over Montreal on SDPN and the Montreal Gazette. I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Mary Clarke from For the Win. And we've got a great show for you today. We're going to bring the emotions, talking about Guy Lafleur. We're going to talk about the playoff matchups being, partially set, but the playoff, like who's making the playoffs and who's not is mostly decided at this point. We're going to look at the Buffalo Sabres. They're actually maybe good. There's some positive signs on the horizon. And of course, our pop culture segment at the end of it. But thanks, of course, for making us your first listen every Tuesday and Friday when this show comes out. But before we get into the hockey, obviously, every Monday show, we have to talk about what we've been doing since the last time we talked, because it's, a 4-day break for Mary and I. And how was your weekend, Mary?
My weekend was good. Just a relaxing one. Got to hang out with my friends. I watched Men in Black for the first time ever, which I know it feels sacrilege considering, I was born in the 90s and grew up in that era and never watched the movie. But I watched it with my friends and it was a great time. I had a very good time. We're not going to watch, I think, the sequels because I've heard from my friends they are bad. But
yes, they are.
I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. So, like I said, I just had a good time with my friends and got to enjoy a little bit of the weather. Thankfully, it doesn't look nice here today, but over the weekend it was a little bit nicer, so I got to go outside and read for a bit, just relaxing before the inevitable playoff grind, because it is going to be a lot, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah. I mean, the playoff grind it's always a little bit exhausting, but at the same time, it almost fills you with energy because it's so exciting. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. My weekend was all work. I had back-to-back games for the Canadiens to cover. There was the emotional passing of Guy Lafleur, and then I was in meetings all weekend because there's some news coming down the pipe today. So make sure you listen to the Steve Dangle podcast when it gets posted, probably around 5 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you check that out. There will be some interesting things to talk about really soon. I've got meetings tonight as well. I'm just so
Are you ever going to
get
a break? Are you ever going to get a break, Andrew? I think that's
tomorrow.
What we're... All right, good. I'm happy because, like I said, playoff grind is real. And while it fills you with energy, it is still a very busy time, especially at the beginning because there's so many games happening.
Yes.
So it can be, it's the great time of the playoffs because there's so much happening. There's a lot of games on, but it can also be kind of exhausting. So I get it. Yeah. So take the rest when you can, Andrew, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I'm not as overworked as somebody like our friend Shayna Goldman, who is, in my opinion, the hardest working analyst in the game. And every time she posts on her Instagram stories about her setup with 3 TVs and her laptop open watching games, sometimes different sports, I'm like, how do you even pay attention? I'm not somebody who can do the multiple screens thing. Maybe 2. But other than that, I've done 2 screens for Olympics, but I don't like to do more than that. I can't pay attention. I've too little attention span for that, but all the credit in the world to people who can. So let's talk about the playoffs a little bit here because, a few weeks ago, it was a little bit more uncertain, right? The Kings were slumping. It looked like they might fall out. Now they've won 4 in a row here. Phil Deneau has been incredible down the stretch for the Kings, and they're back solidified. The only real possibility in terms of what could happen for teams missing the playoffs is the Vegas Golden Knights sneaking in. But the thing is, they are 3 points behind the Dallas Stars, 4 points behind the Nashville Predators. They only have 3 games left. So, Nashville only needs to win a game. Dallas needs to get 3 points in their last 3 games. It's not looking good for Las Vegas, Mary.
And especially because the Golden Knights lost in a shootout. Sure, they get a point, but they lost in a shootout Sunday night against the Sharks. That should have been, for a team of their, playoff aspirations, an easy 2 points. But, only getting 1 keeps them alive, but they basically have to win out now. And it doesn't feel doable, especially with the strength of schedule. I think, I don't remember specifically. We talked about the schedule the last podcast, and I don't remember specifically what it was, but Vegas had at least a handful of playoff teams in their remaining games. Meanwhile, somebody like Dallas or LA are have a much easier schedule. So it's an uphill battle for Vegas, and I really don't think that they're going to make it. I mean, it just feels like they have run out of runway. And maybe even if they had another game or two, maybe they could have flipped it. But I don't. I think it's over for them. Unless they win out and they show an incredible resiliency here, but it feels like the cards are stacked against them because everybody in jockeying for that last those two wild card spots, they all have the same amount of games played. So there's no help here basically on the way for Vegas. They're kind of in control of their own destiny in a way, but that they have to have some help basically if Nashville or Dallas drop a couple, but it's just it's too much, I think. Too much for them to overcome.
It is. And frankly, the way it happened against the San Jose Sharks is very funny. That I think it was Timo Meier said in the media that this was their Stanley Cup, was to knock Vegas out of a playoff spot, which is very funny because the rivalry between those two teams is so strange, both in terms of...
because they swapped coaches, didn't they?
They swapped coaches, yeah. I mean, not swapped. Gerard Gallant never went to San Jose, but Peter DeBoer went to Vegas.
So...
And it seemed like all of the rivalry between San Jose and Vegas was when DeBoer was with San Jose. There was fights between DeBoer specifically and the Vegas Golden Knights. He was accused of, I believe, chirping from the bench or something like that. There was a big hubbub about it.
Thing, yeah.
Yeah, and now there's stuff going on now with Vegas where I was reading yesterday that Robin Lehner has been refusing to play because of things that DeBoer said while he was playing hurt. There's a lot of drama there. I don't know if Peter DeBoer survives this. I think that's my big takeaway for Vegas. But the fact that Vegas could have been in decent position to make a playoff spot this year if they could just hold a lead against the San Jose Sharks, just like they easily would have won the other year if they could just hold a lead against the San Jose Sharks, and they could not do it. They gave up 2 in the last couple of minutes. Yeah, it's just
their kryptonite. Yeah,
the one thing that they have going for them, the Vegas Golden Knights, looking at their schedule now, is they play Dallas when this show comes out on Tuesday. That night, they play Dallas.
That's basically it. Probably if they lose that, it's basically over. So
even if they let it go to overtime, I think it's over.
Yeah, it is. The margin is so thin for them, and that's going to be probably a playoff type atmosphere for sure, because it is essentially a win and you're in playoff game. What it feels like. So
that San Jose game was also Vegas's last home game of the year.
Yeah. Oh, that's rough doing this on the road too.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know Vegas's road schedule because some teams are better on the road than they are at home, but
they're about equal. They have 22 wins at home, 20 on the road. But I mean,
still,
even then,
you're not going to get juiced as much. It really does factor in, especially at the end of the year. Especially if you're fighting for your playoff lives, it's going to feel like a playoff game there, and that's absolutely going to be a must-watch game for any hockey fan, really, because this is all we have left in terms of the excitement at the end of the regular season. We're recording on Monday. The playoffs start a week from today as we're recording. Less than a week by the time you guys hear this. So. Sure, there's a couple of days left, but this is all the excitement we're gonna get, really. There's not much else outside of which teams will slot in where and stuff like that. But this is the big excitement. So definitely, this is the game to watch because it is going to be probably a pretty awesome game if I had to guess.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be a real intense situation down in Dallas, but outside of that, there's really not much going on in terms of, who's going to make it.
I guess props to the Kings though, for, because the last time we talked, I don't remember how many games they had won. Yeah, we were a bit worried about them, and they've since rattled off 4 wins in a row, and basically secured themselves nearly essentially that third spot in the Pacific Division. So, props to the Kings for, getting it done. Their chances of being basically a dark horse in these playoffs, I think, have taken a hit, especially with the injury to Drew Doughty, right? I
Yeah.
believe. Yeah. So they've definitely taken a hit in terms of their dark horse potential, but good on them for, having a real good rally to the end of the season and putting themselves in a good spot. I mean, it's not over yet. Anything can still happen, but they have 2 games left because they're at 80 games. They have 2 games left, but they can really solidify their position. And they've done so. And it's, wild how things could change between in a couple of days span, especially at the end of the season.
Yeah. Although I will say, if LA loses their last 2 games in regulation and Vegas wins their last 3 in regulation, Vegas will hop over LA despite tying them in points because they would have more wins.
Yeah, regulation wins. Yeah.
Not regulation wins. No, they would have more regulation wins.
Yeah, I thought that's how the
wins
tiebreaker is
overall.
regulation.
I think it goes regulation wins after regular wins or something like. I mean, maybe it does regulation wins first. It's like regulation wins, regular wins, head to head, and then goal differential. I think are the tiebreakers. I mean, they should just have a playoff.
I was gonna say, I think I could hear you in your voice heading to the playoff thing because that's the most fun. We almost got it in baseball, didn't we? I feel like we almost got like a playoff game in baseball. Was it last year? I think. Those types of things should be, those should be the tiebreakers. We love a one and you're done. Game to get into the playoffs. It's great. I really I think it, we should utilize that more, but no, we have to, scout the like I don't know, the standings and, try and do all the math to figure out it. It's just dumb. But yeah, it's the West is really fascinating to watch right now just because at all these games matter to these teams. I mean, sure, every game does technically matter, but now it is the crunch time. It is, it's really fun to watch these games because I have no investment in them. So it's just good hockey. It really is. It's a lot of fun, good hockey, and a precursor to the playoff excitement that we're going to get in a week.
100%. And for those whose teams aren't going to make the playoffs, never fear, because it's the best time of the year for you as well. Because all of that sports pain that you've been experiencing this whole terrible season, if you're a Flyers fan or Canadiens fan or Senators fan, what have you. Well, 15 more teams are about to experience that, but much more intense, because only one team gets to be happy at the end of all this. So you're going to have lots of people and different fan bases to commiserate with and laugh at. It's going to be a great time. We're going to talk about the playoffs more on our Friday show. We're going to do a bit of a playoff preview and maybe continue that on our Tuesday show next week. We haven't decided yet if we're going to put that on Monday to get a little bit more talk before the playoffs start. But before we do that, we're going to continue on this show, and we're going to talk about the Buffalo Sabres, another team that's missing the playoffs again, but it's a much different vibe this year than recent years. We're going to talk about that coming up next, but first I got to tell you about HelloFresh. What is HelloFresh? You get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorsteps. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. It's all about convenience with HelloFresh. Not only do the ingredients come pre-portioned so you're not overbuying or wasting food, but it's easier than ever to get filling meals on the table in a snap with options like family-friendly or quick and easy recipes. HelloFresh's chefs really know how to diversify the menu with seasonal recipes like salmon limon and pasta primavera. I actually got HelloFresh for a long time personally. When we had our first kid, we got into a bit of a rut of making things and always feeling like we were behind the 8 ball for dinner. So we got HelloFresh twice a week, or no, 3 times a week in the box, and we would pick out the meals, and you get to try new things because they have multiple meals that you can pick from every week, and then it just gets delivered to your door. You try out new stuff, and then obviously you have the recipe cards. You can keep those and make those meals yourselves and make adjustments to them, make them better for yourself later on. It's really actually been a great thing for us personally. And as HelloFresh has gone on in the last few years, the amount of options they have every week to pick from has gone up significantly. It's a much bigger company. So it's actually really, really interesting to use. But go to HelloFresh.com right now and HelloFresh.com, / LockedOn16 and use code LockedOn16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. 16 free meals. Go to HelloFresh.com / LockedOn16. It's highly okay. So it's America's #1 meal kit. HelloFresh. Go to HelloFresh.com / LockedOn16. 16 free meals plus 3 free gifts. This is a huge deal. So check it out. All right, Mary, the Buffalo Sabres are fun, are hopeful. Was the problem Jack Eichel all along? I mean, I don't believe that.
No. It's just a funny coincidence. It's just a funny coincidence.
It's extremely funny that he's going to miss the playoffs again.
Yeah.
I will say. Like, I have nothing against him whatsoever, but...
Well, you know what? I think we've talked about this, not to continue our Vegas talk, but we talked about this. I think this is good for Vegas. Sure, they want to make the playoffs, but I think it's good for them to, miss finally for the first time in franchise history and reevaluate. I mean, they've got a lot of money on the books. I don't know how they're going to deal with their cap situation, but I think this is good for them to reassess, maybe do their best to do some retooling. And if Jack Eichel is healthy, like has a good off season and is healthy, and he finally has a good healthy season for the first time in a long time, it feels like for him. I think they'll do good for this team. So, obviously we don't blame Jack Eichel for this, but I think the Golden Knights are still in a good position, even if they miss the playoffs this year. I still think, had, they've been healthy for a lot of the year, they probably would have taken good advantage of the chaos in the Western Conference. And I don't see that chaos changing unless unless a lot of things happen in the offseason to move the powers that be. But the Eastern Conference is the big juggernauts. The West it's got a few teams, but then it's just chaos everywhere else. So I really think Vegas will probably be able to take advantage of that if they can remain healthy for another year.
Yeah, for sure. But Buffalo, the big thing that was going around this week was that they've scored more goals at even strength than 3 playoff teams, which is good. But I will point out that despite the positivity around Buffalo, they're still 28th in the league in expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5. So there's still a long ways to go for that roster. I think the main thing that surprised me about Buffalo this year is after losing Eichel and frankly not getting the greatest return for him, they didn't seem to be worse, right? And a lot of that comes down to, in my opinion, coaching and just talking to some people around the game, some progressive people around the game. They are very, very high on Don Granato as a coach who can build things going forward. They speak about him in the same way that people speak about Martin St. Louis, a coach who fully gets it and will get the most out of their best players. And for the Buffalo Sabres and their fans, that's got to be a good thing to hear.
I was trying to Google his name because it sounds familiar in that I thought he was okay. Good. He was.
You thought he was Tony Granato?
Yes, I thought he was Tony Granato, the coach of the Badgers.
I also thought that early in the season. I was just like, Granato. Yeah, it's that Granato.
Yeah, but
there's some famous Granatos. There's Cammy Granato.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the hockey, like big hockey families. So, because I was gonna be like, oh, college experience, have a lot of good like stuff with younger players, but that doesn't matter. I'm glad I looked that up while you were talking so I could not make a fool of myself. But yeah, he seems to have done a really good job with this team. They've got some like young pieces. Tage Thompson has had a really fantastic season.
Yeah.
Like 37 goals, 67 points in 76 games. That is like
he has 37 goals.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
crap.
Hold on. Let me sort by goals here. I mean, Jeff Skinner is 33. I didn't know that either. So that's good.
That doesn't surprise me because Skinner is one of those guys who he just goes on a year and off a year, on a year, off a year. Like when he scored 40 in Buffalo, people were shocked, but he'd scored 37 2 years prior in Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just a name I haven't heard in a while, probably because he's been on Buffalo and they haven't been, sorry, Sabres fans, they haven't been relevant. But like they've got some good pieces here. I mean, yeah, I mean, Tage Thompson and Jeff Skinner are the only two players above 30 goals. But I mean, it's the Sabres. They're not going to have a lot of goals, but like they've had some they have some good pieces here. I mean, they still have, a lot to go. I mean, their goaltending this year has been, just a terrible. I mean, they've, according to Hockey Reference, I see 6 goalies here that have played for them this season. You don't want to see that, even if you're a team like the Sabres who, isn't going to compete. But, they've had some bad goalie luck. I mean, they've had to rely on Craig Anderson, 40-year-old Craig Anderson to, do things in net for them. And it's just,
Or Dustin Tokarski, who hasn't played in the NHL in a few years now.
Or Aaron Dell, who is a cast off from the last time I remember him. He was in San Jose. So yeah, it's not great. I mean, they've got the goalie with the name I can't pronounce. It's really long. He's Finnish.
Is it Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen?
Yeah, that guy. He seems to be like maybe their, goalie of the future. But he hasn't played a lot because I believe he was injured, I think. So yeah, there's pieces here for the Sabres. And I wanted to put this in here because we've talked about a handful of teams, since they've been eliminated from the playoffs about, their future and stuff like that. I thought that tweet that I saw was a good, I guess, conversation starter about the Sabres team because sure, they suck and they have sucked for a while, but is it finally going to be the time where they start to turn the corner and it's basically, this is a new page for them. Getting they didn't deal with the Jack Eichel stuff well. We all know this.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before, but that era of the Buffalo Sabres is over. And now, much like Jack Eichel,
we all hope.
We hope. But much like Jack Eichel, the Sabres now can move on and, do their best to move forward with their, career, their franchise and try not to make the same mistakes they did or, just try and move on from this all. And I think we've seen the shadow it's cast on both Eichel and the Sabres. So I would hope that the Sabres have learned lessons here and that they're going to, be better to their players overall, and stuff like that. So we'll see. But I think that this is a good step for them. Just having momentum to close out a season can do good things for you. Sure. Momentum is what it is. And some people believe it exists, some people don't. But, it's 82 games is a long season. And if you end the season, kind of on a high note, because I believe I put in here that since March 1st, they've gone 15-8-3, which is better than you would expect a Sabres team to be. And they've, they beat the Flyers in back-to-back games recently. I mean, that's probably not a huge win considering the Flyers are so bad, but it's still just a little bit of progress. And it's nice to see the Sabres take steps forward because this whole Jack Eichel thing has been around them for so long and it just hasn't been working. And both sides should be better off now than they were before. So let's just hope that this momentum continues, that they've got a long road because, as I said, the Eastern Conference is full of juggernauts and some of them may eventually fall out like the Capitals and the Penguins. But, it's just a wild amount of teams in there that's so talented, especially in the Atlantic Division, with the Atlantic Division being the toughest division this year in the NHL. And I don't see that stopping anytime soon. So it's going to be a tough road for them, but I think that they're making strides to be better than a basement team in the coming seasons. Let's hope anyway.
100%. And, the other positive thing that they have going for them is Owen Power is there now.
Yes.
And I'm looking at this roster that they have in Buffalo. And one thing that sticks out to me is a lot of their best players are also huge. Dylan Cousins is 6'3", Alex Tuch is 6'4", Rasmus Dahlin, people see him as a small guy, but he's 6'3". He's a big guy. And then Tage Thompson is 6'7", Mary.
Yeah, jeez.
Strange, a really strange thing about the league, and this is something that I've discussed with a few people who are in skills coaching, is if you look around the league, it's very, very, very rare to see a forward who has star quality offensive talent or offensive numbers at the NHL level who's taller than 6'4".
Yeah.
It almost does not exist across the history of the league. And from what I've been told, a big reason for that is guys who are tall like that and big when they're little, they just don't get focused on from skills coaches or coaches in general, because they dominate play just due to size, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas other players you have to work with to develop different skill sets to, make game-breaking plays to create things for themselves, whereas those tall guys can just muscle through it. But at the NHL level, you can't do that anymore. So it's very rare you have a guy who's that big who has that level of skill that Tage Thompson has. So that is super interesting to watch, because the only guy that I can think of in like the last 20 years, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, that was over 6'4" and put up like NHL star level numbers, Blake Wheeler, who's 6'5".
Mm-hmm.
So Tage Thompson has the possibility of being an absolute unicorn for the Buffalo Sabres. There's a lot to be positive about.
Yeah, and and I mean, he is absolutely broken out this year. I mean, looking at his stats page, he didn't even have a double digit goals tally at all in his previously 4-year NHL career. I mean, before he played 76 games, he played, doing a rough amount of math, probably like, I don't know, 100 some. I can't do the math that quickly. But,
No, I mean, he had that tantalizing talent, but he's been pretty bad.
Yeah.
up until this year.
So he's really taken a step forward, and it's basically been his coming out party this year for Buffalo, and it's been one of the better stories for this team, especially considering all the Jack Eichel stuff has just been bad press after bad press, deservedly so, absolutely deservedly so. But that doesn't reflect on the players on the team. It is the management's problem, was like what caused all the Jack Eichel stuff. The players are just there to play hockey. So it's not their fault. And it's good on, the young stars of the Sabres to, keep this train moving, because it's going to be tough to compete in the Eastern Conference anytime soon, it feels like. But, if the Sabres can make, smart moves here and, continue to build on what they've got, this should at least be a more fun team than we've seen in recent years, because the Sabres have just been bad for a very long time. It feels like I can't.
It doesn't feel like it is.
Yeah,
they just have been.
No, I mean, I remember growing up, they were. I mean, they were a powerhouse enough that they were fighting against the Flyers in the playoffs. So I have some memory of that when I was younger, but it has been a very long time since the Sabres were like that. And, it's just good to see. I know that, the Sabres have kind of been, the butt of everyone's jokes for some time, but I think it's good that they're moving on here, because I think, it's much like the Senators. Like, you want them to succeed, even though they have, been mired in a lot of things over the last handful of years. And it's just, you want the bad teams to get better. You don't want bad teams to stay bad forever, even if, they're your rival team. We want, good teams in the NHL, and we want everybody to push everybody to their limits. That's what makes awesome hockey and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think this is good for the Sabres, even if it doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. I still think this is just, at least some positive signs. They've got a lot of work to do, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, the Sabres haven't made the playoffs since 2010-11. They haven't won a playoff round since 2007, and they have missed the playoffs all but 5 years since 2001.
Yeah.
Or all but 4 years, sorry. All but 4 years since 2001. So this is a team that had a brief streak where they were excellent in 05-06 and 06-07. Both times they went to the conference final, and then since then have been unbelievably bad.
Danny Briere years, because wasn't Danny Briere on the Sabres? Yeah.
Yeah,
and then he eventually came to the Flyers. So
yeah. All right, but that's all we've got on the Sabres. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Guy Lafleur, because obviously the news regarding Guy this past week and the Montreal Canadiens' celebration of his life and legacy. But first, I got to talk to you about Rock Auto. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all of the parts that you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry? you have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could possibly need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today and find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts that your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Mary, did you see any of the ceremony for Guy Lafleur that
I did a little
happened in
bit.
Montreal?
I saw the 10-minute standing ovation,
Yeah, that was incredible.
which was really awesome. I feel like you're going to take the floor mostly on this because Guy Lafleur was not a hockey player I watched because I was not alive. I don't
Me
think
either.
you were either, but you have covered and followed the Canadiens, so you know the history. I mean, I know he's an incredible hockey player, historic, means a whole lot to the city of Montreal and to the hockey world as a whole. But I don't have the, the knowledge here to really, I guess, give a good eulogy basically for him because he passed away a handful of days ago now. But what I saw in Montreal was really beautiful. And it was really moving. And I can only imagine if you were there in the arena, what it was like, because I don't think the videos were incredible, but I don't think they do it justice if I had to guess. So I'll probably let you take the floor on this one because you probably speak to it more. But from my, spot as an outsider, it was really moving and beautiful and tribute to, it seems, the person he was in his life, in his personal life, and in his life playing hockey.
Yeah, it was incredible. And I have to do hats off to the Montreal Canadiens for perfecting this kind of thing. I know that they get made fun of once in a while for their excessive ceremonies, but they are a team that knows how to pull off something like this and make it classy and beautiful. And having the group of Canadiens alumni all together behind the bench of the Montreal Canadiens during this whole thing, during the game, it was really special. They took all the ads off of the boards.
Yeah, that was neat.
Which was super cool. It was so refreshing.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Watching a game that way, you can't help but notice it. And I just wonder what it would look like to watch with a clean sheet as well. I feel like advertising is so in our face all the time. We can't escape from it in a digital world anymore. Mm-hmm. I want to see what that actually looks like because it's something that, the Guy Lafleurs of that era, that's how they played the game. But Lafleur, during his career, the peak of his career in the 70s, he led all players in points and was second in goals to Phil Esposito. Esposito scored in the 70s there 433. Guy Lafleur scored 405. He was unbelievable. And I had the pleasure of watching him play in an old timers game when I was a kid. He put rockets on his skates to do a little stunt. So he still had a sense of humor even then. And I met him about 8 years ago. I did an interview with him for a radio thing that I was doing, and just absolutely a force of nature. It's hard to even describe how much life there was in Guy Lafleur, how cool he was, and how much he just took over a room. He had that vibrant energy to him. And I think that's why this situation was so shocking to people, because it was very public that he was going through cancer. It had been a couple of years that he'd been in cancer treatment. He'd had open heart surgery a couple of years ago as well. So people knew that his health was failing him. He was a chain smoker until 2019 when he was when he had the bypass. He lived a hard life. He was a heavy drinker in his playing days because they were partying all the time in the 70s, winning nonstop Stanley Cups, but I think Guy Lafleur was too cool to die. And that's why it shocked so many people, even though they knew that it was not far from happening. It was still such a shock. Whereas, Jean Beliveau, when he died, the picture of grace and finesse when he was playing and off the ice as well. But he was, seen as such an old man, right? That people expected him to eventually pass on. Guy, even though he was an old man, 70 years old, he never felt like an old man. It's a strange feeling with Guy Lafleur, and you see across the league the different moments of silence, the cheers that have erupted in different arenas for Guy Lafleur. He's a person who affected so many people across different fan bases, and what I talked about on Game Over was that there are players who are iconic for their teams, and Lafleur certainly was that. He's one of the four forwards that were like the pillars of the Montreal Canadiens as they are. Between him, Howie Morenz, Jean Beliveau, and Maurice Richard, they're the guys who have statues out in front of the building. They're the guys that they always bring up. They always will be. But Guy Lafleur was also the icon of the times. He was 1970s hockey, and it's not like he came into an era where it was easy to be that either. Like, he wasn't anointed. He came in and stole that from Bobby Orr and the Boston Bruins and Phil Esposito, a team that was expected to dominate that era as the Canadiens were, losing Jean Beliveau and no longer expected to be the best team. And then they went and they won almost every single Stanley Cup in the 1970s. Like, it's absolutely wild. He won 5. They won a couple more without him at the beginning there, but just astonishing how iconic this man is and was. So it's emotional because you have connections to the person, but it's also just really cool to see the collective experience and love for a person like this. And man, the Bell Center remains the most special place in hockey. And
I want to go to a game so bad, Andrew.
Like, call me biased, but a 10-minute and 10-second ovation, and every time they tried to interrupt the crowd, they just got louder. Mm-hmm. There's no other place like it in hockey, and no other place could even try. Yeah. It's a special place. And one thing that I mentioned on the show the night before this event happened was I was talking to Andrew Cohen, who's a legal analyst, and he works for things like the Marshall Project, but he's a huge Canadiens fan. He was on the show. The Bell Center has a reputation for being the arena that anticipates goal scoring, right? So like where a lot of places you react to the goal scoring, Canadiens fans, it's a very steep incline in the Bell Center. So in order to see when things get in tight, everybody leans forward, and that Bell Center lean is become an iconic thing. It's a famous part of the experience at the Bell Center, and that anticipation of something special is about to happen. And I think a lot of that has to do with how Canadiens fans were conditioned to watch the game while watching Guy Lafleur, and how that's been passed down through the ages now to modern fans, that whenever Guy Lafleur had the puck on his stick, people lean forward. Mm-hmm. And that has not gone away. I hope it never goes away, because it's such a special thing, and we owe that to Guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I can say anything better than that. That was, I mean, rest in peace. Good on Montreal for an incredible, celebration, a ceremony between the video. I didn't see all the video, but between that and what the fans did, the no ads on the boards, all that stuff, it was wonderfully well done, a beautiful celebration. He will be missed. There's not going to be anybody else like that in hockey, I don't think, ever. It feels like
I mean, maybe modern players could learn a little something from Guy, because he was a guy who never shied away from being special and being out there. Released a disco album in the 70s. I don't know if you've ever heard that. That's my
kind of hockey player. No, but that's my kind of hockey player. I'm all for that.
Yeah, you can find it. It's on YouTube. You can look it up. Guy Lafleur released a disco album at the height of his popularity.
That's incredible.
Absolute wild man, and a guy who was very forward about the fact that you should be prioritizing offense, and actually retired because the Canadiens hired his former line mate, Jacques Lemaire, and Lemaire basically invented the trap and wanted Guy to play defense, and he was like, I'm out of here. And he retired for 4 years before coming back. And I think as much as Jacques Lemaire's trap did redefine hockey for 30 years and is still a big thing today, Guy Lafleur was right. Just because it's successful doesn't mean it's good. I'll say that. It broke hockey for a long time. It was not a good sport. and we're just getting out of it now. So be more like Guy is what I have to say for both the Canadiens and for players in general. Let's give us some entertainment. Let's prioritize the entertainment side of hockey a little bit. But I think that's all we have to say on Guy, because I could go on for longer, but we don't need to do that. It'll just get circular. So we're going to talk about our pop culture segment in a moment. But first, I'm going to tell you about Built Bar. This is the time of the year where I've pretty much given up on all of my New Year's resolutions. But not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? Well, if you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors. Yummy cinnamony, churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie, so good. These are going to be your new favorite. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, Puffs included, 100% real chocolate. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They're better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Go to Built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. High protein, low calorie, high fiber, low carb. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Whether it's mint brownie, coconut almond, or something else like the new for this month, white chocolate, cookies and cream, they're all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. If you think a flavor might be good, they'll make it, and it'll be delicious, and it'll be good for you. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, and then figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how, but they pull it off every time. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off of your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, Mary, how much time did you have this weekend to relax and watch something? Obviously, you watched Men in Black.
Yeah.
You want to talk about some Men in Black?
I didn't have to. I really enjoyed it. It was really cool. Hearing what they did in the sequels made me kind of mad, considering all the stuff that they, I thought it was just a nice, like, contained story that, sure, had possible branching off points for a sequel, but then apparently they, didn't do all that and just brought back Agent K again after, his memories were wiped. And I'm like, what? Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. It's bad. I'm just gonna, delete all that knowledge from my memory and just the sequels just don't exist in my brain. So it's just a nice contained story. But I really enjoyed the performances overall. I mean, it was funny that it was a Will Smith movie considering all the stuff about him recently. But I've said that my friends and I have been we've been writing down movies and basically using a giant online wheel to pick from the movies, and we've been watching them once a week, and it's been really fun. And Men in Black was the one that we picked this time, and I think this upcoming weekend is going to be a French animated film that's kind of like based off a Phantom of the Opera. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah. So I definitely recommend doing this with your friends, being like, hey, put these movies in a pile and randomly pick one and then watch it and then have fun. Just either one of us has seen it, we've not, or we just want to see it. Cause I think we're going to put, we may either move the Batman up because, we talked about like the two of us, Andrew, we talked about watching that movie, and a couple of my friends are interested in it. And I don't know if we'll put it in the rotation or, actually watch it in a couple of weeks, but that's in there. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there, and, things my friends haven't seen, things I haven't seen. Some of them haven't seen Indiana Jones. I'm like, how could you not have seen that? And then, they were the same to me with Men in Black. So it's, we're trying to do our best to show each other different pop culture stuff, and it's been fun so far. But I've been continuing on with Our Flag Means Death. I think I'm on episode 5 or 6, something like that. Finally, fully met Blackbeard. Really intrigued by where it's going to go. Been enjoying it a lot. Luna is about to jump down, so this might be her first podcast appearance. She loves to do this all the time when I'm on meetings and stuff, but she comes down and says hi. that won't be, it'll be fine. But that's basically it. I've been playing Elden Ring still, Final Fantasy 14 still, trying to, watch more things. That's basically been it. I do the same things every week. I try and bring more things to the table in terms of variety because I feel like you watch more things than me, Andrew. So I always feel like I'm doing the same thing every week. Doing my best. But yes, I had a good relaxing weekend and got to watch some cool things. And hopefully, maybe by the time we convene again on Thursday, I will have finished Our Flag Means Death. Maybe. So,
all right.
Yeah,
Sounds
but
good.
everything I've been watching's been good, or playing's been good. It's just a good time for pop culture, I must say. It really is.
I'm glad that Men in Black held up because that was definitely a movie that I loved as a kid. And a lot of movies that you watch when you're a kid don't hold up very well.
It was just fun. It was distinctly 90s in a way that I was like, man, I'm really nostalgic for this type of movie. Like it felt of its era. And, as somebody who grew up in that era, I don't know, it just was nice to, be reminded of kind of what it was like growing up as a kid. And sure, I probably would have really loved it if I'd watched it growing up, but it made me really nostalgic for, my childhood. And I think that's, it's a good thing that I watched it now because, made me miss the 90s a little bit. And, we could always have more 90s in our life, if I'm being honest. So
yeah, and that was part of Will Smith's 3-year run that set him up as like the it guy for a while in Hollywood, where he did Independence Day, Men in Black, and then Enemy of the State. This is a Blink-182 album. But yeah, Enemy of the State. And then after that, he did like one good movie for 15 years.
And then, of course, he had his singing career. So, like,
yes, yeah, I mean, and also, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which is
a true triple threat. A true triple threat, if we're being honest.
Yeah, and also he's got a good slap.
That's gonna follow him around forever, isn't it? Just
100%. I mean, he's banned from the Academy for a decade.
Yeah, I mean,
but,
it is.
Yeah, they did a standing ovation for Roman Polanski. Tells you where Hollywood's
hate Hollywood.
It's awful.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, I understand coming down on Will Smith, 100%.
Yeah,
but you got to do something about the other stuff too.
It's much like the NHL's Department of Player Safety.
Yep.
It's much like the NHL's Department of Player Safety. Like, if you're gonna bring the hammer down on somebody, make it consistent across the board. Like, you can't just like let these people get away scot-free. But that's how their system works, and that's how they keep the people they have in power. And it sucks, Andrew, but
it does.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to the Cross-Check NHL Show and making it your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Hosts Steele Roden and Flip Livingstone help you become the expert of your fantasy league. It's free wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you on Friday.